Our next lesson in chapter 4 is still looking at parabolas, so we're still focusing on quadratics and parabolas and what they look at like. But now we're going to look at a different form. So the form that you spent the last class on was all focused on what's called vertex form. Vertex form, the ideal part about vertex form is you can very quickly look at it and know exactly where that vertex is. You can know a lot of basic things about the graph without having to do a ton of work. So now we're going to look at something called standard form. Standard form is not going to have any parentheses. You're going to have your three terms. Your A term is going to be what's with the x squared. Your B term is going to be your x. And then your C term is going to be your constant. So you'll have it written something like 5x squared plus 3x minus 2. It will go in order from the highest exponent to the lowest exponent. There's a couple things that we can know very quickly from standard form, and then there's a couple things that we're not going to know very quickly, and we're going to have to do a little bit of extra work. If you have a calculator close by, grab it, because I want to show you as many things as you can do with a calculator on this as possible to make things a little shorter for you and show you some shortcuts. So here's what I know very quickly. What I can predict is I know it's going to be a parabola. I can look at my A value. Again, that A value is the key, and that will tell me if it opens up or down. So just like the last lesson, if the A value is positive, it will open up. If the A value is negative, it will open down. We can also use that A value to talk about being wider or narrower based on if it's bigger than 1. Bigger than 1 gets very narrow, and smaller than 1 gets very wide. So we can do some basic things with that. But the vertex is a challenge. We can't just look at it and know what the vertex is. So with this one, the way that we find the vertex is we use a very short formula. You should remember this from Algebra 1. The formula is to find the x value of the vertex, you take the opposite of the b value divided by 2 times the a value. And that will tell you where the x coordinate is of the vertex. Once you find that, you're going to put that into your calculator to find your y value. We're still going to write our vertex as a point, x comma y, but we're going to have to do a little extra work in the beginning to be able to find this vertex. We still have an axis of symmetry. That axis of symmetry is still at x equals whatever that x value is, so whatever that first number is in the vertex. That doesn't change. The other thing that we can find very quickly in standard form that we didn't really do as much in vertex form is the c value will automatically be the y-intercept. So whatever your c value is, let's say there's a +5 at the end or a +2 at the end, that will always be your y-intercept. So if you have a question that wants to find the y-intercept, the best form to be in is to be in standard form, because then you're just looking at that constant term. It makes it very quick for that. There are some questions on delta math that will ask you that will ask you just for the y-intercept, and those are very quick in standard form. So here's how it works, and here's how the calculator is going to help you. First thing you're going to do with this is you're going to write down your a, b, and c value. Again, those are the numbers that go with each term. Your a value for this one is 2, your b value is -4, and your c value is 1. That also tells me that the y-intercept is 1, so that's what that piece of information tells us. To find the vertex, we're going to do the opposite of b. So instead of -4, it's going to be +4 over 2 times a, so 2 times 2. So when you do that, you get 4 divided by 4, which is 1. Here's where the calculator is really nice. If you go to your calculator, go to y equals, get rid of whatever you graphed last. You're going to type in the full equation of this parabola. So you're going to type in 2x squared minus 4x plus 1. So you're going to type it in exactly the way you see it. If you go to graph, you'll actually see the parabola. And the one thing you should have known from the beginning is you know it's going to open up. You also know that it's going to cross the y-axis at 1. So your vertex, it looks like the vertex is at 1, but to get the exact vertex and get the y value, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the calculate menu, which is where you have to hit second and then trace. And this menu, we've used this menu once before when we did an intersect button. We want to plug a value into this parabola. So we're going to hit enter on value. And it's going to ask us what value we want to plug in. Well, we want to plug in 1 because that's where we believe the vertex to be. So when you do that, a couple things will happen. It will flash at that point, and so you want to make sure that it really is flashing at the vertex, and then it will also list the point at the bottom. And so that definitely looks like it's the vertex. So we would say the vertex is at +1, -1. So I'm going to write that down, +1, -1. On my graph, I'm going to go to 1, -1. And I'm going to graph a picture. I know it crosses the y-axis at 1, so I'm going to try to be as accurate as I can with that. My x-intercept, or my axis of symmetry is x equals 1. It's always going to be going right through the x coordinate. This is definitely a minimum value. We talked yesterday about minimum versus maximum. When it opens up, it has a minimum, and that minimum is going to happen at -1. That's the lowest it ever goes. And we already mentioned that the y-intercept is 1. So we have everything we need from that one. For the next one, I'm going to write down my a, b, and c values. So a is -1, b is 6, c is 3. So my formula again is the opposite of b over 2a. This is a formula that you just want to jot down in your notes and just have it as a reference for the entire day. We're actually going to use it tomorrow as well. So you're going to use this formula a lot for this beginning and middle part of chapter 4. So we take the opposite of 6, which is -6, divided by 2 times -1. If you are doing this in your calculator, you do have to put that denominator in parentheses. So you have a -6 divided by a -2, that's 3. I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in this equation. So -x squared plus 6x plus 3. And I'm going to hit graph. Can't really see my parabola. It's obviously pretty high on the paper. Looks like my vertex is somewhere around 3. To find it, I'm going to go to second and trace, and I'm going to enter the value of 3. It's a little off the screen, but that's okay. I can see at the bottom that it's at the point 312. So my vertex is 312. I'm just going to estimate on my picture. It's way up here. Make sure you draw it opening down. My axis of symmetry is x equals 3, because that will split it into 2 equal parts. And this one has a maximum, because that's the peak of the parabola, at 12, because that's the highest it ever goes. I also know that it has a y-intercept of 3. So if the question asked about the y-intercept, we know it's at the point 0, 3. That is something we know right from the beginning. And you can see it on the graph. Show you a couple more here. So another one where we're going to list our A, our B, and our C value. Opposite of B, so opposite of 10 is -10 over 2 times A, 2 times 2. We get -10 over 4, so I'm going to write that as -5 over 2, or you are welcome to write it as a decimal. I have no problem with decimals here. You're going to go to your calculator. You're going to go to y equals and type in this equation. So 2x squared plus 10x plus 7. Go to graph so you can take a look at it. I believe the vertex is at -2.5, so I'm going to go to second, trace, and hit the value of -2.5, or you can type it in as a fraction. And I definitely have the right vertex because I'm flashing right at the bottom there. So my vertex is at -2.5, -5.5. And again, I'm not super concerned about the picture, as long as I have a pretty accurate representation. My axis of symmetry is x equals -2.5, -2.5. And I have a minimum here at -5.5. Next one's kind of messy, but it's the same idea. A is a half, B is -3, C is 11 halves, or you could type these in as decimals. All that 11 halves is going to do is it's going to tell you your y-intercept. It's going to be where it crosses the y-axis. So my formula opposite of B, so +3 over 2 times a half, 2a. Well, 2 times a half is just 1, so you end up with just 3 over 1, which is 3. So on my calculator, I'm going to type in 1/2, or you could type in 0.5. So 1/2 x squared minus 3x plus 11 halves. Hit graph. You'll notice how this graph got a little wider, and the reason it got a little wider is because the number in front of x squared is less than 1. I'm going to type in the value at 3. And I have my vertex. It's flashing there, so I feel pretty comfortable with that's my vertex. It's flashing at 3, 1. So my vertex is 3, 1. 3, 1. I draw kind of a wide graph there. My axis of symmetry is x equals 3. And my vertex is a minimum at 1. So at this point, I have some more to do in this section, but I want you to practice a few on delta math that are asking you to find the vertex or the axis or things like that. And then we'll come back and do another short video kind of finishing the topic.